You see, the conclusions I make reveal a kind of disorder and fragmentation. I assume not what that that what I say is true. I assume that I've made myself clear. In explaining myself, I assume that what I do not explain is apparent already to everyone. Therein lies the flaw of this tireless work. It is too much for a young mind, as I am unable to divorce the objective realities of a greater universe with my own subjective accounts of the reality that is played out before my eyes on Earth. What makes sense on this absurd marble is not necessarily the same sense that could be applied to that universe. Those who add more elements to a piece of artwork, which could already stand on its own as something perfect, will ruin it. An amalgamation of colors results in a shellac of brown. The universe, I guess, is a type of artwork that adds elements eternally, and what results is never superfluous. Each element adds to the intricacy, and the purpose of each layer is a pivotal importance that is sustained. Such is how it must work in order for this collection to be worthy of an infinite that is never perfected. And all this could be explained, save that the unreal mind refuses me to understand the inner workings of itself. I believe if God meant for us to understand, well, then clarity would be our life. If the meaning were clear, well, then our heads would be clear also. There would be peace. The things of confusion, turmoil, and war would be foregone, since all that could be understood already was understood, abolishing confusion. In this lies a certain duplicity. For to fathom the meaning for all this shit, humanity has learned to indulge doubt at the first hand. This doubt is our greatest asset as a species, I think, because doubt will always mar the ends and crossings of any formal weave of thought and principle, any idea. Will leave the summation as not a summation. Ceaseless clarity, whether superficial or profound, would rob us of such doubt, I believe, and leave us unable and unwilling to progress. Since, well, fuck, the summit had already been reached. For to unearth the truth of the matter, one might as well be raping the universe, reducing it to small bills given for a half-in-the-bag lay. How can something grow if one cannot keep the previous levels intact? One cannot or will not find the truth, but which one and when? The truth to me is frighteningly indifferent. Regarding any catastrophe that may rear forth and leave humankind scared for itself, there should be a distinction made between the catastrophes perpetrated by man and those perpetrated by nature. I find a sort of maliciousness in great tragedies caused by destructive human beings. I do not feel this regarding some such destruction when carried out by the whim of nature. The thing is that nature has no reason to hate, no reason to be evil. It merely is at times overwhelmingly evil. Typhoons, hurricanes, tornadoes that ruin lives. The evils of nature and its forces are to me more frightening concepts than the evils of human beings, which, on a grand scale, will most likely be for the sake of some weird cause. Even if that cause is utterly horrifying, I am able then to justify the act as being the brainchild of someone just as horrifying, and it is not as difficult to label. Catastrophes of nature are senseless, without motive, and prove nothing in the disorder and death carried out in full by a mysterious organic power beyond its own control. But even the killer who kills for no reason is still doing it for his or her own enjoyment. Moreover, the killer will continue to kill in such and such a pattern. Some such person can never be kind. Nature can be kind, and yet behind this kindness we must respect an interminable malignant force, able to end a good amount of lives, quite literally, without a thought. There is no discretion in nature, and while sunny days can please us, those days also have a type of absurdity in how they so persuasively shroud the deeper potential for destruction that nature possesses, and what's more, the complete indifference of nature as to the well-being of the world and its peevish inhabitants. Nature modulates without reason, and kills without reason, and this is the true horror. There is one comfort in this, that in every faculty there lies a summit, and at every summit a point of deference from nature, and as hatchet thrown becomes stuff stuck in splintered spine. What enkindles from the wound is not benign, but a leather dream. And it is never the same dream. Never one since that has equaled this one. Even as I go about the day afterward, I find everywhere the remnants of the dream, puny imagos of action, significance, and feeling. Feeling feeling more than anything else, too glorious in its pretending to live in the memory past breakfast. I remember men in masks and empty, vacuous eyes, and the slack of hand into fist. I remember mist, the mist that gathered at the back of my eyes. It was a prosperous hush across a barren plateau. In my mind was the plateau, and dust that roamed in swirls thoughts that soon disintegrate into motes and motes and motes. They fill my ghost with screams. They fill the ghostly aperture with dust that yells out from the tranquil vortex. Be kind. My thoughts are delicate, though blind, and are figments that cannot speak, despite the lowing of my mouth. I started in one room, then decided to dig through the dirt floor into the other room, then opened the door into the next, and then smashed through the ceiling into the next, then climbed a rope into the next, and then took apart the beams, and I jumped right into the next, then I moved the walls apart and disappeared into the next, and then I had no legs or arms and became the next and could not move again. And every room I got myself into was darker, smoother than the last, and then the room became a circle right before I died. And then the circle wasted slow away, and all the light away. But first the light became remote, and then the room was like a tomb, and each mote of dust everywhere at once, and the dust everywhere like little universes, in the spareness of the closet that I finally traveled to, that opened to a room we never see, in a house we never hear, in a neighborhood we do not live in. A man is in this room we never see. He is all the men in every room and every room that is in the house. The borders of the room, the handsome light of tranquil borders, and the house itself a tranquil seeming, so that what it harbors dreams a density apart from the apocryphal, apart from the intelligence, weighing like a stone, weighing like choice, the heft of a pastoral encumbrance, hauled always by the men in rooms who do not approach one another ever, and bleed out the heft, slowly, without feelings of disappointment or sadness, hauling the encumbrance of the house. The house now has the power to not exist. This is not unlike the densities of our world, which hold the weight of all that is not real, and accumulate slowly into object that stings the personality. The object is the man, and the age endures beyond the man. The age will take the man and make a temporary man, so that he may be freed from the confines of the room. This transposition is not material for discussion, and should be taken for what it is. I would rather say much more than alternate between the temporary and the extemporaneous, but I have no choice, and the spatial naivete of my words goes on and on with abandon. The power is either temporary and fizzles, or lasting, but trite and pithy. I barely harness control over my own words and become the disciple of a previous man, a man of strength and sawed disposition, a man of rock, a man who was encased within the figure of a boy, a little thing, a little creature of prudence and dismay, who lived in words his own he thought were others, and the others that were not his, he knew as his. Could not stomach his own suffering, and quickly transposed the anguish to the temporary man that he became. This action was explicit in its meaning, in that one could never fully be a man without succumbing to the omens left over from a layered life that alters, that each delta drops to the same sensation of premature acquisition and leaves one doubting whether they had changed at all. This doubt, you see, is what made me no longer a boy, and shrunk the world to finikin particulars that blot the sensitive into numbness, and strangle the herd to humming numbnesses of understanding. If only the innocence could bring me to the eloquent brass of true change that does not last, gives me enough, so that I have enough to change again and again. The platitudes must not be platitudes, but instead see what is fixed as being fixed indeed, but only for a time, at which time it shall become faulty and inspire manipulation in the design. I shall make ready for the constant flux born under the guise of imperial doubt, and winged by the flames of skepticism, so that it could be true to say that flames can make a man a wing, at least in some interior world sprawled out before the mapping of an atom telling of where it goes to a margin of accuracy. The space of the margin is not disclosed, and enacts a feeling for the mysterious, and if given a hand at fathoming where the void could lie, could self-destruct my facile brain. I must, in succumbing to doubt, regard myself and all that I could see as true without a conclusive anthem to mention. I make the decision to leak out a bit onto the floor while the boy dies. The throat of time has swallowed me. And I plummet into my present area of life. What or who sculpted the wheel into a cube? Perhaps if one and the other were the same, mon semblable. Perhaps the divorce received by daunted horse whispering could bring logic still enough to cling to something in the face of this dismissal from reality. To go live a bit in some paternal section of myself that lingers between the temporary man I am and the permanence of doubt, which overtakes each season of maturity. The permanent man does not escape from this. Ever. He does not grow out of doubt. The callow attempt to fangle the sprigs of being into new flowering from mangled seeing. The last kernel of brutal light suffers in the termination. Another day has passed. Another day will pass again and turn like a door that turns by frames to darker frames in a series that squeaks with lesser shine until the night has fixed the mural in darkness total, and the lacoon of stars holds more and more horror in showing me the depletion of symmetry. Each star is an eye that holds dynasty over the concentrated, unwieldy earth, toying with this humanely sculpted idea of vastness. It would be like if you had a black square and a white square and delicately placed them next to each other. The black square may be to the right or left of the white square. However, they still mainly consist of themselves and only themselves, meaning that the quicker half of the millisecond is the part of time that has already become the other second, which itself is the quicker portion still to come. Perhaps one could see it as being contrived in slowness or quickness, but not both. Since changing the position of squares does nothing to change the content. Thus, it seems that the idea is that the flux of the universe generally is a projection. Thus, the idea is a square, that it is as it is a physicality that rearranges what is already there without changing the schematics of the millisecond, which shifting between slowness and rapidity, and it does not matter which came before, because in relation to themselves, they are the same thing. One began the other, and that an expansive slowness engendered an expansive quickness. Consider the mechanisms of one turn to the other, appearing to slow down then speed up with each revolution. However, the quicker half bleeds into both, and this could all lead to something located in the sync, the rotary, the funny talismans that swing and scream.